Now to just to record it for posterity. So don't yell anything that you don't want broadcast onto a live stream that will only feature my face and will possibly be watched by 12 people in total. Yeah.
Great.
That's the only extra logistic that I had.
Awesome.
I don't know anything like what's going on here. So I guess that's the one thing that I should say is that Mary Wynn has spent, this is my wife, Mary Wynn. Mary Wynn has done a great job running everything so far. You know, as the best host in the city, she's done a great job. I can firmly say with a lot of conviction that she's done a great job hosting so far. Also, none of this would have happened if she didn't decide to do it. So, like,
there's a chicken egg situation.
Well, which I'm sure that we'll talk about, but essentially, I had a wild hair creative urge. And then she said, let's make this real. And now there's a book and we're here and there's cookies with the cover of the book on it. And we're going through the things that happen at a book launch with actual real writers. And she did all that stuff. So yeah, I love her. I appreciate this so much. I will now treat her as if she is a faithful automaton that is running
purely professional
this stuff. But I should say that up front so that I don't have any trouble going to sleep tonight realizing that I didn't acknowledge the most important person in this whole process.
Thanks, baby. I love you. So great. And now we're just coworkers. So a couple of years ago, Jordan, there was, and it sort of limps along an internet thing called NaNoWriMo, where you write a full novel in the month of November. And they did the organization that was NaNoWriMo kind of they kind of got messy and not cool by trying to make it for profit. And so actual NaNoWriMo is sort of a thing of the past, but Jordan really liked that idea of setting aside a month to write a novel. And so he decided to do that in November 2023.
The traditional month.
The traditional month.
It's yeah.
Yes. But on your own, like, you know, just as a lark. And so he wrote this novel, and then once he finished it, he was sort of like, all right, now it exists. And he put it in a Google Doc that maybe a lot of you read. He just sent it out to friends and was like, you want to read my novel? And if you have any notes or comments, go for it.
Yeah, comments, because I wasn't going to change anything.
Not the way, sure. Which is not the way authors normally behave with their books. And I read it and I loved it. And so for his 50th birthday was last year. I said I wanted to self-publish it for him. And he was like, oh, that sounds fine. I was like, I'm gonna edit it, okay? And which sounds terrifying to, I think, most people who are writing things, for someone, especially someone you're married to be like, I'm gonna edit this thing. And Jordan was like, that sounds great. Do whatever you want. I was like, do you want to check out these edits that I'm doing as I do them? And he was like, no, it's fine. Whatever you think is fine. So, which was surprising to me.
I did the best job I could the first time through.
He did a phenomenal job. As a person who has written a number of books that have been traditionally published,
30 what? How many?
2.
32.
It blew my mind.
And one of those books was turned into a musical at the Kennedy Center before the Kennedy Center became a bastion of evil.
But today is about you.
Right. It's just useful context, you know.
So, as a person who has written some things, his process is baffling to me and remains baffling to me. And so we're going to talk about that some today. But I basically the story structure and the character development was so strong. I basically just did line edits. I did copy editing for the most part. And then I gave it to him and was like, "Do you want to, like go over my?" And he was like, "I'm sure it's fine." and and so and that is pretty much the like once we had the draft of this from the publisher, I mean from the printer, he went through and he found a bunch of typos, but that was pretty much it. So
It was the first time I read it since I wrote it, and I was like, whoa, aside from constantly pluralizing things that shouldn't be pluralized, I am enjoying this a lot. So that was cool.
um so uh so that's the background of this project. And so now I want to go back to the sort of beginning of it, and I have a two-pronged question for you, which is essentially, how dare you? Why did you do this? And so the two prongs to that question are: what made you want to do it? What inspired you to do it? And also, what did you hope to accomplish in doing this?
I'll answer the second one first. I hoped to write 50,000 new words to a novel, towards a novel, because that's the container of like what the challenge is. I think the first one is just, I think for most of us that are like creatives in some way, artists, we want to make things, and for the most part, like the ephemerality of our particular art form, since most of us are improvisers, is something that like really suits me. I really, really like it, and it gives me what I want in terms of like artistic satisfaction, and I think I'm pretty good at it. But but it leaves no artifact. Like it is inherently ephemeral, and so the idea of actually uh, sliding that window, the process and product window for improv is entirely overlaid, which is part of what's kind of amazing about it, but it's also what makes it evaporate. And so I, in part, I wanted to sort of see if I could slide those windows and have process be something that produced a product that could exist later on. And then, I'd aspired like, oh yeah, I could write something. Maybe I could write a book. I'd like to write a book, but I didn't have any conventional tooling for that. But I think that it's also one of those things where it's like, I don't want to get bad at improv. I really don't. And it's like really easy to do that if you have been doing it for a long time and you find things that sort of like work by default, and you don't actually have to interrogate anything about yourself or like what you feel while you're doing this thing. Like, you excise the emotional process. And so I think it's like when I did the Ouroboros a few years ago, it's like because I had a question for myself of like, can I do this? And I think that this was like, hey, I spend a whole week of the class that I teach just hammering people about how if you choose to play a certain way, you could kind of create a perpetual motion machine for improv. Um, and we spend 3 hours in a single day where we do that, and then we talk about kind of like the outlying outputs of that could keep it going if we had more time. And so I think it was that thought plus the desire to have an artifact that made me be like, okay, well, you don't have conventional writing tools, but you do have improvisational tools that you claim can do a thing. And so do you dare to try and put your money where your fucking mouth is and actually try and use the tool set that you claim exists and can work to produce an artifact, to hit 50,000 words by using the same techniques you would use to improvise a 24-hour long show. And so that's what I tried.
Great. Cool.
Yeah,
All right.
I think it worked out okay. It was I'm like, oh good, like a lot of this stuff, it is the you don't know what's gonna happen, and then you immediately start searching for limits about like why things can't happen instead of just doing it and seeing what happens. This is not the best book in the world. In fact, most of you might think it's purient and stupid and slight. And you maybe you're right. You're probably right. But for me, I'm like, man, it was fun. And rereading it, now I'm like rereading it again, embarrassingly enough. It lets me look at my own brain, and I'm like, this is fun. This is really fun. So, let's produce something that's a good time.
So when you're talking about the what did you call it? The machine that
Oh yeah, perpetual motion
yeah. Machine. The way that my writer brain interprets what you're saying is that you're talking about world building, and you're talking about character development, and you're talking about like arcs, like the size of the arc, the narrative arc that you're building. And so could you talk a little bit about how you map that from improv to like writing a novel? A novel is so much longer than an improv show.
Well, I mean, I think that's what made it kind of an endurance exercise that was worthwhile seeing, But I mean, but the chapters in this thing are incredibly short, but it's like because it's sort of like our improv scenes are fairly compressed pieces of time. So, that's probably reflective of it somewhat.
But I want to just sort of interject and say they are small, but it doesn't feel choppy.
Oh yeah, sure.
And that's a really like skillful magic trick that you pulled.
Mm-hmm.
And so how did you do that?
Well, it's okay. So a thing that I talk about a lot is that like when we're playing shows, you could just mess around and have it be sort of like a stone skipping across water. But ultimately, like when you produce a piece, you want it to be a holistic thing. You want it to feel like, oh, we made a thing, but you want every moment to be alive, and playful and present. And so that's the approach that I took here is that like you have an architect and an actor when you're playing. And I find that it is most beneficial to optimize all your thinking, which sucks, and is boring and frustrating and diminishing.
When you say that, you're talking about like analytical, like your author brain.
Yeah,
you're talking about like your
here, here's the structure of this thing, here is how it flows. So in improv, I suggest that shoved to the sidelines, and you make your choices. You set your context. You figure out your inward vector to a world. You follow that vector, and then you live in that world. And then when you're in that world, you just play. You're present. You don't interrogate the laws of reality. You live in the laws of reality. And so that's like flow state stuff, right? And for this, and so I think that's the thing that mapped over is that like, I'm going to say some things, and they're going to be things I believe, and I want to be, I want to be true. I just want to be true the whole time through, rather than artificial, rather than say like, oh, if I bent it this way, then I could land this impact. I don't want to think about impact while I'm playing, while I'm in flow state. I just want to exist. And then when I review what my existence was like, that's going to tell me something about what I think and who I am and where this thing is going. And it's sort of like, yeah, it could go a million different ways, but the value is making something tangible this time. So being afraid of making a choice or equivocating or making the right choice isn't that productive, I find, playing, and I didn't think it was going to be that productive here. So what I did is I tried to get in flow state, and I wrote a chapter, and I played around. I just messed around, and I did the things that I thought that amused me. and like what I could see in my head for something happening. And then when it was done, I was like, okay, here's where we are now. Where, what, like, okay, rhythmically, like I'm going to seed this thing with maybe like a few different directions from the very first thing. And I'm going to let those directions flow out. And I'm going to take time to sit back and observe what's happening. And then when my mischief triggers me and is like, ha ha ha, oh, this would be available to happen because of what already happened, then I can start with a new direction and see what happens next.
So
know?
I want to sort of
Oh yeah, I'm
twist
sure that I'm
that
being like
into
really
writer language and say, how much did you outline in your head before you did this?
None. I mean, no outlining. What I did is I kept a retroactive outline, like a color coded retroactive outline, so that like as I wrote things, I would be like, oh, this is generally in this topic vein thing, and I would like, and it might be multiple, and I would just color code it, and I would look at this thing and be like, oh, what haven't I hit in a while? Okay, I guess I'll go back and do that, and then it's sort of I was just John was just in a rehearsal this morning, and it was just something that we were talking about. It's like improviser brain is just we're so conditioned to like pattern and drive down that we just do it compulsively, and we find patterns and we stick stuff together, and it's really reductive for us. I think it is a problem for us as a people, is that we are massively reductive and we don't do things as interestingly as we could do them because we don't choose to go out. And so I think that was the thing that was the most interesting to me, is being like, I know that this thing should be about this length. I have about this time box. I can kind of faintly imagine where some things might wind up. Oh, this is making me laugh. I'll probably remember it when the time comes up for me to, or maybe I'll write a word or two and be like, oh yeah, trying to remember that this would be fun if this happened. But when it felt like it was tightening up, I might land a thing for the overall rhythm and then be like, okay, and now I got to go open again. And then as I sort of like coasted that wave, it was like, oh, I think this is what's happening overall. Okay, I feel like I know where this is probably going, But then if that's what I think about, then everything's gonna be really dry instead of like, getting to dawdle off into that, like, this is not a spoiler, but basically it's not a plot-based spoiler, but there's a point in time later on where I just throw in a crew of people on a spacecraft, one of whom is an amphibian creature who keeps turning the thermostat up on the spacecraft, and the captain is the only one who can't figure out who's making it hot all the time, and he's super mad about it. And I was just like, ha, 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 ha. And I just like, spent several pages on that sidebar because I was like, well, it's not really diminishing momentum, but it is kind of an interesting thing, so I'm going to do it.
Well, that sort of like sign form,
yeah,
that I think that really, I think in the story, what that functions to do is it makes the pacing really tight, because you're never letting that go. You're never letting anything go on too long. It's really, it's one of many things that I think is pretty remarkable about it. Another thing that I think is really remarkable. So
thank you for all your patience listening to them. I'm just like,
I'm also gonna open this up.
I don't know. I might be full of shit.
I'm gonna open this up to questions from you at the end, and then also I have extra books over here if anybody wants one. I just left my Venmo thing, and the books are $18 if you haven't gotten a book and you want to get a book, but nobody has to do that. So another thing that I think is pretty incredible is the number. Okay, so my second novel had two main points of view, one sort of ancillary point of view, and then one point of view that happened for only one chapter. And that book almost killed me. Do you know how many points of view you have in this book?
It feels like you've counted.
I did.
Well, geez, I don't know. There's
I
close
want you
to
to get.
70 chapters. I return every so 30.
We should. It's 30. I almost did a spit take. It's 30.
You know, I've got my problems.
Just for everybody else's benefit, their names are Chablinkov, Lazy Nations, Dr. Desmond, Zapasmazoid, Beatific Nations, Shelley Wheatler, Dennison, Wyatt, Marcy Egg, Captain Rick Hart, Matthew Corbin, Detectives Bunsen and Mandel, Carol, Amy and Biscuit, Elvin and Darcy, Real Buddies Mobile Advertising, Joe Hickok, Captain Veronica Boner, Evangeline Doppler.
Bonaire.
Really?
Yeah.
Then it needs a little thingy.
Oh, well, it's my fault.
No, that's my fault. As the damn it. Second printing. Erskine and Romana, Toby Chompers, The Ankh, Rodrigo Lorenzen, Crazy Nations, The Queen, Gnarly Nations, Mordur, and Mr. Moon. That's nuts.
Not in and of itself worth applause, but
No, I think it is, because here's the amazing, remarkable thing is that we care about all of that. And that's actually, well, so did I as a reader. And I think that's really hard to do. And I think that you do that as an improviser, and it's really cool to watch as an improviser, you know, and in the audience, and it's pretty amazing to read. So there's real pathos in the story. Like it's ridiculous. It starts off extremely pervy, and
yeah,
you know,
cover your ears. It's
we have to talk about it. I think just putting that out there is enough. But like as we go on, there is a loss. There's like a real loss in the book, and it's something that I as a reader really felt. And I think that there's this, you know, I mean, there is the long held perception of improv that it is comedy, that it's like shticky and bitty and hard stop. But emotional depth is a really important part of improv for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so from a craft perspective, like how do you make that work?
In what context? In
Context of like, I think what I'm really asking is how do you, because you do that in improv, and for this, your first novel, you have 30 points of view, and you still make us care about these people. And so it feels like something you are mapping over. It does not feel like something you intuitively just learned how to do for the novel. And so the question is like, how did you make us care about that? How do you make us care about your characters?
You know, I just don't think there's like, I just don't think there ought to be separation, you know, like separation. I think that's actually like, that is an improv thing that like we contend with a lot, you know, where it's like, because people want to be funny, they other the people they're playing, you know, they hold them at arm's length and are willing to be cruel, you know, stiff, artificial, all that stuff. And I just think that like, it's better to become somebody and feel the things that they're feeling to try it out. You know, it's a thing that like we talk about where it's sort of like, it's good. I think good improv is like human practice. You know, you're putting on different versions of yourself, and then you're living as that person. And yeah, some things deviate from your normal behavior. I mean, especially with the Ask Clown show, it's like welcome to Loser Central. But we're never like, you know, we're still trying to feel things, you know, and hopefully never like make anybody the butt of a joke. You know, if we are the ones that are losing, we want to feel the loss rather than hold it away and be like, look at people, what losers. You know, it's like, hey, look at what being a person is like. You feel things. And I think that because that's so pivotally important to me, kind of like in my main avenue of expression. It wasn't even some, the way that I wrote things is just like I I became the multiple people inside the space and just played the scene out and wrote it down. So it's like, hey, I'm all of these people to some degree or another, and want I want the best for them, even if there's challenges inside there. I think I'm probably closest to Shelley Weidler of any character. That's the most default me, but I think that everything else is still some version of me, or that's how I tried to manifest it.
Did you surprise yourself when you were writing it?
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah,
Uh-huh.
definitely. I mean, it's hard because it's easy. It's obviously more fun to collaborate with other people, and sort of like playing scenes with yourself feels like it's only going to drive down and stop being something where you explore. But I think if you sort of get into a place where the way that you're playing a character is conversational, then you intrinsically say what you're feeling without like pre-litigating it. I mean, and that's what's good in I think in performance improv too, is like not taking time to try and figure out what the funny or right thing to say is. Just feel something and say what you're feeling, and then you will surprise yourself. And so I think it's a similar thing here, where it's like, oh, I'm going to become this person, and I'm going to put myself in this situation, and I'm going to react to it and say things and whatever. And then when I toggle my point of view to whomever is there, I will have said something that I must react to, that I didn't overthink in my intellectual hardware.
Um, I think I'm gonna maybe open it up and see if there's any questions now. I've got a couple other things, but does anybody, yeah.
As someone who's just been dying in this building every day and every night, I haven't had a chance to read it. Does Vampire Cop show?
No, Vampire Cop does not make an appearance in this.
Why?
Yeah, I know. He's such a big presence. I feel like if I ever were to write anything with Vampire Cop, it would have to be a Vampire Cop.
And to follow, does anyone try to get you to eat or bring Quiznos up?
No, no. I mean, this thing is a giant pastiche of all of my various interests and influences. But that would be such a total rip of somebody else's stuff for me to do a Quiznos bit that I just couldn't bring myself to. Brian,
Speaking of interests and influences, I feel like reading it, I was like clocking a lot of like authors who I'm like, oh, this is reminding me of this and all this kind of stuff. It's still like very individually you, but I'm curious if I'm right. So like, are there, well, this question is about me. So I'm curious what the influences you would say are. Like, what were you drawing on when you were writing it?
Well, I always think about this guy, Daniel Pinkwater, because he is my favorite writer of all time. And the sort of like the way that he makes you feel it makes it feel the nature of how he conjures his stories make you feel like you could walk out the door and walk down the right alley and suddenly be in a fantastic place. And so that level of kind of like easy access to the fantastic, I think, is probably already there. But he, with the exception of the Afterlife Diet, his one book for actual adults is not nearly as grossly perverted as I am in this thing, So like, I think that a thing that always sticks in my head is when I read Murakami's Hard-Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World, I was so appreciative of how these two completely disjoint ideas wove together at the end of this novel, while also like going on a couple of like explorations in it that were like, oh yeah, that's an interesting way to think about reality. And so I think that that's always in my mind is like an invitation to basically wander, you know? And same thing with, I don't know if it was, if I can't remember if it's like Breakfast of Champions or another book, but basically where Vonnegut like takes 3 pages to stop telling a story and just tell you, hey, things have been rough, but I'm going to be okay. You know, completely breaks everything just to let you know, the reader, that he's going to be okay. And I think that's always in my head, to be like, as a reminder to sort of like, yeah, to be emotional, like that like, uh, you know, we can't know because group mind is bullshit. We don't know. We can't know each other's minds. But my suspicion is that so much of our experience is similar in terms of like anxiety and loneliness and feeling strange and apart, you know? And so I think that like I have found that expending energy to communicate with people does deplete my energy, but always gives me payback, you know, like it's always worth the expenditure of energy to communicate with people, even though as an expressive introvert, it depletes energy for me. I think that particular thing, the way that like Vonnegut operates reminds me that that it is incredibly useful to be emotionally truthful, you know, even inside wild, crazy premise, you know. And I think that's something else that really hits me. It's like why, you know, if we're ever messing around, I'm always like, I don't do a lot of, I do sometimes, but I don't do a lot of like, I don't do a lot of sarcasm. And I frequently say that my bit is sincerity because I just need that, you know. I just feel like that's something that's really worthwhile. And so, you know, it doesn't bother me to tell me, it's for me to tell you I love you because I do. and and we don't have much time. So, you know, that kind of and that I feel like that's not really a novel idea as much as something, you know, something that I think of when I think about Vonnegut. That's 3. Oh, Carlton Mellick the third too. If you Carlton Mellick the third is this guy who writes all these bizarro books. And his biggest book was a book that was the Kobold Wizard's dildo of enlightenment +3 or something. And he writes like often 120, 150 page novellas that read really easily and are very emotionally true, but they are the craziest stuff possible and really transgressive and often very hard. So, but that's the thing that gave me permission. I was like, well, somebody else is, it's okay. You know, what's the worst thing that happens is that like Louis reads this and you know, and maybe has a good time with it, and then says, yeah, you shouldn't show this to anybody.
So you said Murakami, Vonnegut. What was the first one you said?
Daniel Pinkwater.
Daniel Pinkwater, and the last one.
Carlton Mellick the third.
Alec?
Mellick, sorry. Mellick. So close. Oh yeah. I saw Patrick Firstland and Ariel. Sorry, he'd just beat you in a moment. Sorry, I'll try.
And I'm curious if you like went into it with like wanting to not use real places that we all know, or if you invent places, or if you did a mix, or if like I'm only gonna invent places where I'm gonna not.
I think I mostly invented places. It's maybe a mix, but I think I mostly invented places, and I think that might be like a Pinkwater thing. Like in Pinkwater's books, it's so playful, the nature of places that he creates. And so being able to sort of like make a thing that is close but is not exact is a playful, like the Real Buddies mobile thing is just like, oh well, if I made it Real Buddies, then I could have a 16-word chapter that is just the jingle for Real Buddies, which I couldn't do if it was Cricket or something, Yeah, Ariel, what do you think?
Okay, so Jordan, when you say you were improvising with yourself in your head, is that actually in your head, or are you getting up and like how much of this writing process is physical for you?
It was not very physical. So it was John, it's fine. It's not something that is upsetting. I mostly just have my laptop, but like I think that sitting there, but I think it probably it doesn't manifest physically, but the cadence is kind of physical, so I might be sort of imagining inside somebody's head, write dialogue out, sit back for a minute, reread it, and then absorb it like I was being played toward, I think that's generally because it's like getting close to 2,000 words a day is like you need a lot of hours to do that, so I had to be lean. Yeah, Julie, what do you think?
So this is a two-prong. When you think about audience, I would love to know what your relationship is to the audience when you're creating specifically character relationship in an improv situation, and how the removal of the audience, or at least the distancing from your audience, maybe changed or shifted or affected the process of like building relationship.
Well, it may have been easier for me because I'm a psycho, but I don't think about audience that much. Like it sometimes invades my experience a little bit, but usually I would say that that's an emergency situation, like if I'm thinking about the audience, it's because something needs to be triaged, but largely I'm kind of like, I can't do what you like. I can't know what you like. I can just do what I like and I believe in, and that activates my sense of mischief. And so it's why, like, playing right now at Finley Dunn's on any kind of night, whether it's a night where funny, a weird one, we've got like, the teams and a couple of our stalwarts, like, and Jeremy and Brock showed up again. It's like, thank you guys for being here. But like, it doesn't change much in me, I think that when we moved from the Wrigleyville IO to the Cheesecake Factory IO, I was the one that was like, I think that on my team, I was the one that was that cared the least about the changing nature of the environment, because Cheesecake Factory IO fucking sucked. Sorry for those of you who are there, and what I don't know anymore. I have 5 years distance. Maybe it's fucking awesome now. But like that change was like a pretty big disruption for us, and it didn't really affect me much, because I'm kind of like, the thing that's important is on the stage, and people get to make their own choices about like what they think about it. But the way that I can be the way that I can be a voice that contributes the most from my well is if I tell you what I feel, rather than trying to absorb what you feel and make a choice about that. Like I just don't feel like again, it might be another piece of how I'm emotionally malformed, but I just don't feel like I have the right. I'm like, I'm not, you're a healthier person than I am. I'm just going to show you what I think, and I hope you enjoy it. It's maybe, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Kind of. It's also, it is a little psycho.
Yeah. No, I get it,
Because,
yeah.
because I mean, you can't avoid the fact that, so before I wrote books, I did plays. I've not done improv because no, thank you. But no, I mean, I think you're amazing that you can do that. And that is not a great thing for my brain. I get scared. I get so nervous. Jordan doesn't even get nervous anymore. Like that feels uncomfortable to me, but
I got nervous about this.
did you?
Yeah.
Oh, Oh,
I think so. I think
cool.
that's it.
That's what it feels like, is maybe you're like, wow, this is, huh.
Yeah.
You cannot avoid the fact that there are people in a room with you when you're improvising. And when you're writing a book, you are so alone.
Well,
Like I mean, yes, you're in your head, but I mean, that is like a really vigorous boundary setting to have those two be the same experience.
yeah, I mean, I care and I care desperately. I want to have it be a good experience for people, and I want to hear what people thought about it and how it affected them and how it made them feel.
Mhm.
But I don't want to. I just don't want to put any weight on anybody, and sort of like, if I start to attenuate my behavior towards what I feel your expectations are, then I've kind of obligated you to a relationship where I have some expectation of what you'll give to me. And this whole thing is about having truly the honor of giving, of like, and it's why, like, whoever is in the room, I mean, this is fucking amazing, but it's why at an improv show, if I'm playing for 150 people or 5, I'm like, the point is not to like treat you like like a stack of money. Oh, I have less or I have more. It is that whomever is here was kind enough to give me some regard. And so I don't want to put any sort of like handbrake on that. I just want to say, here, this is what I have. We can talk about it later. I would love to. And I would, if there's things that you didn't like, or that if I hurt you, I would really like to know, so that I can manicure my behavior. But for right now, the relationship that we have opted into is that you have been kind enough to give me time and eyeballs, and I appreciate that, and so I will give what I have. And there is no expectation on you of any acceptance, any affirmation, any of that stuff,
I think I get it. So I'm going to say it back to you and tell me if I'm right. That bending the story to either the audience's expectations or your expectations compromises the story.
Yeah. My expectations for what an audience wants.
Yeah.
It's why when you come see shows, like, and you just have come to see a show, you're on a team, you come to see a show just to hang out. Why I'm like, so like, this is so fucking cool, because it is. Like, you have the benefit of being able to play and be positioned to give, and to give how you consider things, and you've opted to come and receive from other folks. I mean, Price, you just came the other night to that show, and it was like, Price is a fucking amazing improviser. Like, he doesn't need to. John, I'm being sincere. Please don't do this. But he's an amazing improviser that it shows the additional reservoir of his humanity, that he is willing to come and accept what other improvisers are giving. Will does it all the time too. Will's just always there by himself, seeing shows. Will's a fucking great improviser. Doesn't need to do that. Does come almost every time I try to talk to him. He lowers his eyes and leaves. So I'm never gonna be as expressive as I want to be about how much I appreciate that. But like, yeah, but I can't expect it, but I appreciate it.
So
if you are audience for anything.
So I want to go back to.
Yeah, I got derailed. Sorry, I'm passionate. I'm a passionate robot.
So I want to go back to like your first answer.
Sure.
Which was, what did you hope to accomplish? And you said, I just wanted to write 50,000 words. And I want to call you out on that, because I don't think that's true. I think that was the structure.
You're right. You're right to call me out. And you're absolutely right. Very insightful. Very insightful.
Well, it's because of something you said yesterday is what's
Mhm.
making me really, which is someone texted you something nice
Yes.
about the book, and you said it really moved you, and you said, well, that's because I did it for them. I did it for the improv community. And
Yeah.
which
well,
so I think that there's something fundamentally about being in conversation and being in collaboration that so part of me is like calling out that, and part of me is saying one of the things that he did was in the Google Doc, like he invited a lot of other people to join him in doing this, write a novel in a month. Like
Oh, for the next year?
yeah, for the
Yeah.
next year.
Mhm.
You invited what, like
Well, I
people?
invited everybody that was interested. 8 or 9 people got on the dock.
Yeah.
4 or 5 of those people wrote anything at all. Nick broke the limit, but somehow he got to fucking like 70,000 words and was like, I need another 70,000. I'm like, how do you do that? And Emily Walters also got over 50,000.
So I'm bringing that up to say, like, would you recommend that? Would you recommend using improv for improvisers to write novels?
Well, yeah, I think that you're right. You're right to call me out for that because I always talk about functionality, not form. Form doesn't fucking matter unless it serves function. And you're right. The form of it was 50,000, but the function of it was to see if a reasonable piece of expression could happen following this methodology. And I'm really happy with it. I mean, it is sleazy and it's a Z movie from a mom and pop VHS store is what it is. It's like you roll in to some independent video store in 1993 and this is the one with the stupidest cover and you rent it and you're satisfied that it was fucking dumb and over the top. That is what this is. But I love that. I love that stuff, and I have like a lot of great memories doing exactly that. So it's no wonder that turned out. And like I don't want to. There's a real sorry, I'll try and be concise. I know that I will fail. There's a real danger to saying like, oh, I want to do a new thing, and your objective is doing a new thing, right? Like I think about all these guys in the mid 2000s of improv that were like, we're the bad boys of improv and we're going to do it like no one's ever seen it before, but they had actually no point of view, so they just did fucking bad shows with a lot of attitude, and it's like, well, so doing something new in and of itself is not like that's not a goal, that's like that is like a that's just so that you can feel like a special human being um at the expense of everyone else. It's like, hey, why don't we all just sort of be like, this is wild to be a human being and we can do shit and nobody really has to like differentiate themselves to that degree, but do something new. But I do think that sort of experimenting and finding new ways to use what we have is incumbent on us as like, this community is the best in the world for what we do. And so we can dick around and we can do a bunch of fun shows and we should, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like we have such a nucleus of truly phenomenal, impassioned people here that we should think about how we can use our tools to make things, especially in this fucking world right now, especially right now, like the authoritarian assault on the human spirit is in full effect. And I mean, I feel helpless, but like, but what I feel like I can do is like make things, like try and make things. And so like having tooling to do that is important. So yes, I'm like, yes, please read my book, enjoy it. Tell me how you think of what you think about it. Also, we have no publicity. So truly, if you like it, buy a copy for your fucking weirdest friend. and say, hey, if you like this, buy a copy for your weirdest friend. So that like, not that it's going to make us a lot of money, but I would like the idea of getting out there that like you can do this thing this way. And I would like to encourage all of you to like try it, like try using this tool set to make something. You can do it, and it could be really cool. I will try and do it. I'm fantasize about writing 10 novels in my 50s. So I will do it again this year. And I don't care if I have a spreadsheet that has 200 rows on it. And I don't care if 175 of those rows have no entry into them, like Louis and Lauren on the spreadsheet did nothing. You know, so yeah, Lawrence was the worst because Lauren was like, I can't write a whole, but I'll write a poem a day. Nothing. So I love Lauren. Lauren is one of the greatest of all of you. But that is a thing that happened. So it happened, but I don't care that it happened. Like, so if you think you would like to try this, yeah, around October or September, ask me about it and we'll get you on the spreadsheet. And then, it might motivate you to do nothing, but it might motivate you to try it, to do this thing, which is not unique. I was curious. I figured out a thing. It is not, if it has any value at all, it is not unique to me. It's like the Ouroboros. Like that was cool, but if I was the only one who could do it, then it's not really worth anything. But if it's something that we discover that other people can do to use as a mechanism for expression and discovery and making things that we haven't seen much before, then there's a shit ton of value in that. And yeah, I just wanted to prove it to myself, but in proving it to myself, the next step is like, what is the transmissibility of this idea and this mechanism, And I've been a shitty friend. I still haven't read Nick's 70,000 words or Emily's 50,000 plus, or even Keller's 6,500 words that he managed to get to and then went, this is too hard. So, but I intend to read all these things at some point.
Well, I feel like an important like subtext of that of everything you just said,
yelling at everybody. I'm so
which was
sorry.
which was
Ben, right on time, baby.
An important thing just to like point out that like what I hear the subtext of you saying that like in this world that is hard and messy and caustic and takes a lot from us, that how we will get through it is making things. You said making things, and I think the subtext of that is for and with each other.
Yeah.
Too, right. Like
yeah.
The creation of community and like this, what could have been a really insular experience, you turned into like a community.
Well, I
like
did what I
it
usually do is like, hey, I did this thing that I'm really enthusiastic about. I would like to share it with friends, but not so much that I would like to bother them. So I will share it with a few folks, but generally feel kind of embarrassed and like I'm sucking time from folks. So I generally would like this, and I generally won't. I won't transmit it. I'll just be like, oh, cool experience. You were the one who made this a community thing, who got all these people here, got it published, got all this stuff. Like,
That was after the fact. That was after the fact. You'd already made the Google Doc. You'd already done a lot of other stuff. And so,
yeah, there's no, I guess we don't need to,
we don't,
like, don't need to litigate it. But what I'm saying is that
we will later.
I don't have, a thing that I have found to be true is that I do not have much in the way of commercial ambition. I do have an enormous amount of artistic ambition, but I have no commercial ambition, which is why I am where I am in life.
Yeah, this is wild. He like was gonna write this and not have any, like, not, it was just gonna then exist in Google Docs.
Yeah.
Any other questions that anybody has? Because I feel like it's been a lovely but long time.
And Greer left, so I can tell you all that the book starts with a werewolf circle jerk, and then it goes from there.
The end. All right. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah.